Good morning, you're watching DD India and I'm Preeti presenting this edition of News on the Hour, a show which we get for you every morning to make sure that you keep yourself abreast with everything that's making it to the headlines. We'll get you national updates, international updates, updates from the world of business, sports, enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour. First, the headlines. Addressing the 5th Indian Ocean Conference in Abu Dhabi, the minister says Indian Ocean region hit by COVID and US-Afghan pullout. Union Home Minister Amit Shah attends the 57th Raising Day Parade of BSF as chief guest, spends time with Jawans on Saturday at the Rohtash border outpost. Cyclonic storm Javad weakens into deep depression, expected to recurve and move towards West Bengal coast. NDRF teams deployed in West Bengal. Sea at Digha turns rough. United States, European Union and other countries call on Taliban regime to end the targeted killings and enforce disappearances of former members of the Afghan security forces. Countries call for a full and transparent investigation of the allegations made by Human Rights Watch. And in sports, Indian badminton star PV Sindhu to lock horns with South Korean En Seong for the title clash in the BWF World Tour Finals. Sindhu gives brilliant performance in the semi-finals by defeating Akane Yamaguchi of Japan. Alright, those were the top stories. Let's get to the news in detail. Now, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar addressed the 5th Indian Ocean Conference on the theme Ecology, Economy, Epidemic, and that's been organized in Abu Dhabi. The event is organized by India Foundation and is chaired by Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. This year, the conference is dealing with the challenges faced by Indian Ocean due to the effects of the pandemic, economic decline and also climate change. Addressing the event, Dr. S. Jaishankar highlighted China's growing power in the region.
Consequences of China's growing capabilities are particularly profound because of the extrapolation of its domestic seamlessness to the world outside. As a result, whether it is connectivity, technology or trade, there is now an ongoing debate on the changed nature of power and influence.
The External Affairs Minister also expressed concerns about terrorism, which have got stronger in the light of developments in the AFPAC region.
Like the rest of the world, nations of the Indian Ocean are also grappling with the same global concerns. Worries about terrorism have got stronger in the light of recent developments in the AFPAC region. The international community has voiced those sentiments in UN Security Council Resolution 2593 by demanding assurances that Afghan soil will not be used for terrorism, by pressing for inclusive governance and seeking safeguards on treatment of minorities, women and children.
On the climate issue, Dr. S. Jaishankar said that there is widespread disappointment about the lack of adequate progress on climate change.
On the existential issue of climate change, countries of the Indian Ocean have the highest stakes. There is widespread disappointment about the lack of adequate progress on climate finance. Developing countries cannot consent to the developed shifting responsibilities onto them because they do not wish to change their lifestyle.
Dr. S. Jaishankar also said that the pullout of United States forces from Afghanistan and the COVID pandemic are the two developments that have posed the biggest recent challenges for countries in the Indian Ocean.
Two developments have significantly heightened uncertainties that Indian Ocean countries contemplate. One is the American withdrawal from Afghanistan. It leaves both the immediate and extended region grappling with serious concerns about terrorism, radicalism, instability, narco-trafficking, and governance practices. Given proximity and sociology, we are all affected one way or the other. The second is the impact of COVID on a region that is particularly vulnerable to health and economic stresses. The pandemic has not just been a once-in-a-century shock to the international system. It has also thoroughly exposed all its fault lines and shortcomings. International organizations failed the world, whether in terms of establishing the origins of the problem or in leading the response to it.
We are heading for a short break. Stay with us. We'll be back in a short while.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Hindu ni hao.
Salam India. Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Nahnu hunud.
India.
Ma Hindi hasti.
Hindian.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
Your window to rising India. India's voice on global platforms. Latest news from India and around the world. In-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in all Southeast Asian countries. STTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 17 at 93.5 degrees east. HDTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 10 at 83 degrees east. For technical details, scan here. Switch to DD India now.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching News on the Hour. To commemorate the 57th Raising Day of the Border Security Force, Selma Praharis and also other forces are showcasing mesmerizing skill and grit at the BSF Raising Day Parade in the Golden City of Jaisalmer in Rajasthan. Home Minister Amit Shah, who is on a two-day visit to Rajasthan, is the chief guest at the 57th Raising Day Parade of BSF. This parade is being organized outside Delhi for the first time in Jaisalmer. And under the Swarnim Himachal Mahotsav, Union Minister Anurag Singh Thakur today flagged off Run for Himachal from Rajghat to Himachal Bhavan. Addressing the gathering, the minister said that Himachalis have created such an image all over the country that wherever they go, people want to connect with them because of their honesty. He added that many big projects are coming up in the hill state, asserting that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has accepted all demands, including strengthening of the health sector in the state.
हिमाचल प्रदेश में देश का शायद ही कोई ऐसा बड़ा प्रोजेक्ट होगा जो हिमाचल प्रदेश में नहीं बन रहा। छोटा सा प्रदेश है, लेकिन माननीय प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने उसको देने के लिए कोई कमी नहीं छोड़ी, कोई कमी नहीं छोड़ी। जो मांगा वो दिया है। आदरणीय नड्डा जी मंच पर बैठे हैं। नड्डा जी जब स्वास्थ्य मंत्री बने तो देखिए हिमाचल प्रदेश के लिए हमारा एम्स अस्पताल हो, मेडिकल कॉलेज हो, पीजीआई हो, बड़े बड़े अस्पताल हो, मदर एंड चाइल्ड अस्पताल की बात हो, किसी तरह से स्वास्थ्य केंद्रों की कोई कमी नहीं छोड़ी, तो आदरणीय नड्डा जी ने हमारे हिमाचल प्रदेश के लिए कोई ऐसी कमी नहीं छोड़ी, सब कुछ मंजूर करने का काम किया है।
He also urged everyone to work towards ensuring all-round development of the state so that it can be made Swarnim Himachal Pradesh.
जयराम जी की सरकार 4 साल पहले बनी, जो केंद्र के प्रोजेक्ट थे वो भी, जो राज्य के प्रोजेक्ट थे वो भी, उनको धरातल पर लागू करने के लिए पूरा प्रयास किया। हिमाचल में चौमुखी विकास करने का काम किया है और हम विश्वास दिलाते हैं, जितने हमारे भाई बहन यहां पर खड़े हैं, आप और हम मंच पर जो बैठे हैं, वो मिलकर अपने हिमाचल प्रदेश को स्वर्णिम हिमाचल प्रदेश बनाने का काम लगातार करते रहेंगे मेरे भाई और बहन।
On the occasion, Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister said that people might be living far away from Himachal Pradesh, but their heart always stays with the state.
हिमाचल के लिए बहुत प्रसन्नता का विषय है कि हिमाचल से दूर भी हिमाचल के लोग हिमाचल के साथ दिल से जुड़े हुए हैं। हम कहीं भी हो, लेकिन उसके बावजूद देवभूमि हिमाचल से हमारा रिश्ता है, देवभूमि हिमाचल के प्रति हमारा कर्तव्य है और देवभूमि हिमाचल को हम सदैव अपने दिल में रखते हैं। ये एक आज के इस कार्यक्रम से साबित होता है।
The BJP president hailed the efforts made by people from Himachal Pradesh in creating awareness about curbing air pollution.
यहाँ बैठ करके आप दिल्ली में कितना ये एयर क्वालिटी इंडेक्स है, क्या है हमारा पोल्यूशन, इसकी चिंता करते हैं, लेकिन हिमाचल में जब जाते हैं तो आपको आसमान जितना नीला दिखता है, बाहर से लोग आके बोलते हैं ऐसा नीला आसमान देखा ही नहीं। तो ये ईश्वर का आशीर्वाद है, ये हमारा योगदान नहीं, ईश्वर का आशीर्वाद है। इसलिए जिसको भी हिमाचल में जन्म लेने का मौका मिला है, उसको ईश्वर को 100 बार नमस्कार करना चाहिए और आशीर्वाद लेना चाहिए कि वो हिमाचल में, ये देवी देवताओं का प्रदेश है। हर जिले में हमारे यहाँ देवी देवता वास करते हैं, हर जगह हर गांव में देवी देवता वास करते हैं। उससे प्रेरणा लेते हुए देश में अपने आप को जोड़ते हुए आगे बढ़े, इसके लिए हम काम करें, ये हमारा आपसे निवेदन है।
India's COVID vaccination coverage has crossed 127.61 crore. With the administration of over 1 crore 4 lakh vaccine doses in the last 24 hours, a total of 127 crore 61 lakh 83,065 beneficiaries have been vaccinated across the country till now. The vaccination exercise as a tool to protect the most vulnerable population groups in the country from COVID continues to be regularly reviewed and monitored at the highest level. And up next, we take a look at the COVID situation from across the country. The recovery of 6,918 patients in the last 24 hours has increased the cumulative tally of recovered patients to 3 crore 40 lakh 60,774. India's recovery rate because of this stands at 98.35%. 8,895 new cases were reported in the last 24 hours. Active caseload presently stands at 99,155. Active cases constitute 0.29% of the country's total positive cases, which is the lowest since March 2020. Also, the testing capacity across the country continues to be expanded. India has so far conducted over 64.72 crore cumulative tests. While testing capacity has been enhanced across the country, weekly positivity rate at 0.80% remains less than 1% for the last 21 days now. The daily positivity rate is reported to be 0.73%. The daily positivity rate has remained below 2% for the last 62 days. And Himachal Pradesh has become the first state to fully vaccinate 100% of its adult population against COVID. Over 53.86 lakh eligible adults have been administered the second dose. Himachal Pradesh was also the first state to achieve 100% first dose vaccination of adult population by the end of August. Himachal Pradesh government will organize a mega event at AIIMS Bilaspur to mark the achievement of 100% COVID vaccination of second dose of its eligible population. Union Information and Broadcasting Minister and local MP Anurag Singh Thakur, BJP National President JP Nadda and Chief Minister Jairam Thakur will grace the occasion. Maharashtra has reported the first case of Omicron variant of COVID, raising concerns of the health authorities in the state. The infected patient had arrived from Cape Town in South Africa via Dubai and Delhi on 24th of November. Except for mild fever, the 33-year-old patient had not complained of any other symptoms of COVID and is currently taking treatment at the COVID Care Center in Thane district. It further said that the 12 high-risk contacts and 23 low-risk contacts have been found and they have tested COVID negative. Besides, a health checkup of 25 passengers who were on the same flight with infected patient from Delhi to Mumbai has also been done, and they too have tested negative for COVID. Search is on to trace other close contacts of the infected patient. And in Gujarat, the first case of Omicron variant has also been reported in Jamnagar. According to the official sources, a 72-year-old man returned from Zimbabwe tested positive to the new variant. He is being treated in an isolated ward of the government hospital in Jamnagar. Other persons, including family members, have tested negative. However, they are all kept in home isolation. In other news, Cyclone Jawad lost strength and weakened into a deep depression on Saturday, even as it approached the Odisha coast, and is set to recurve near Puri this afternoon and move towards Bengal coast, losing further strength. It may reach Bengal as a low pressure or a cyclonic circulation today that will curb its impact a great deal, though heavy rain has still been predicted in some areas of the 4 coastal districts of the state. Kolkata could receive just light to moderate showers during the day today. With Jawad fizzling out as a cyclone, Kolkata is now set to receive just light to moderate rains instead of the very heavy showers that had earlier been predicted. The coastal districts, the 2 Midnapoors and 24 Parganas, may receive heavy rain in some areas along with Howrah and Nadia. Ahead of the expected landfall of Cyclone Jawad, 18 NDRF teams have been deployed in West Bengal as the sea at Digha has turned rough due to cyclonic circulation over Bay of Bengal. Meanwhile, administration in Odisha is keeping a close watch on the impending cyclone. As per the forecast by the Met Department, the cyclonic storm has weakened into a deep depression and is expected to approach the coast of Puri district by this afternoon and recurve towards West Bengal. Indian Army contingent departed for Maldives to participate in the Indo-Maldives joint exercise, that is military exercise, ex-Equivalent, which will be conducted from 6 to 19 December. The exercise aims to enhance operational synergy between armed forces of both the nations in terms of understanding transnational terrorism, both on land and at sea, conducting counter-terrorism and counter-insurgency operations, and sharing best military practices and experiences. Besides rigorous training, the joint military exercise will also include cultural and sports activities to enhance defense cooperation and bilateral relations. The exercise will go a long way in strengthening India's relations with Maldives amidst emerging security dynamics in the Indian Ocean region. And India's glorious freedom struggle is one of the greatest struggles the modern world has ever witnessed. In today's edition of Saga of Freedom, we will be talking about philosopher, poet and Indian nationalist Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, who was the first Indian political leader to openly put forward in his newspaper Bande Mataram the idea of Purna Swaraj for the country. We will also be remembering writer, journalist and Indian independence activist Ramaswamy Krishnamurthy, popularly known as Kalki Krishnamurthy. He participated in the non-cooperation movement and played a key role in India's freedom struggle through his writings. Let's take a look.
In today's episode, we pay homage to the philosopher, poet and Indian nationalist Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, who left us on 5th December 1950. Ghosh was perhaps the first Indian political leader to openly put forward in his newspaper Bande Mataram the idea of Purna Swaraj for the country. Later, he became a spiritual reformer, introducing his visions on human progress and spiritual evolution.
Ghosh was born on August 15, 1872 in Calcutta and went to King's College in England to study for the Indian Civil Service. It was in Europe that he first felt the call of nationalism after getting acquainted with Italian and Irish nationalists. He also participated in an Indian students' organization called the Cambridge Majlis.
After returning to India, he took up various civil service works under the Maharaja of the princely state of Baroda. Aurobindo became increasingly involved in nationalist politics in the Indian National Congress and the revolutionary movement in Bengal with the Anushilan Samiti. He was arrested and faced charges of treason for Alipur conspiracy. However, he was never convicted. Famous freedom fighter Chittaranjan Das defended Aurobindo Ghosh in the Alipur bomb trial of 1909 with these words.
Long after this controversy is hushed in silence, long after this turmoil, this agitation ceases, long after he's dead and gone, he'll be looked upon as the poet of patriotism, as the prophet of nationalism and the lover of humanity. Long after he is dead and gone, his words will be echoed and re-echoed, not only in India, but across distant seas and lands.
During his stay in jail, Aurobindo had mystical and spiritual experiences. It was in his speech at Uttarpada that Sri Aurobindo, for the first time, spoke publicly of his yoga and his spiritual experiences.
Aurobindo moved to Pondicherry, leaving politics for spiritual work, and devoted the rest of his life to the development of his integral yoga.
On 15th of August 1947, Sri Aurobindo strongly opposed the partition of India, stating that he hoped the nation will not accept the settled fact as forever settled. He was nominated twice for the Nobel Prize in 1943 for the Nobel Award in Literature and in 1950 for the Nobel Award in Peace. Sri Aurobindo died on 5th December 1950. Over 60,000 people attended to see his body resting peacefully. We salute this great guru, philosopher and nationalist.
We also commemorate today writer, journalist and Indian independence activist Ramaswamy Krishnamurthy, who died on the 5th of December 1954. Popularly known as Kalki Krishnamurthy, he participated in the non-cooperation movement.
Kalki was born on 9th September 1899 in Puttamangalam, Tamil Nadu. He had his primary education in his village school and later attended Municipal High School in Mayavaram. However, he quit school in 1921 in response to Mahatma Gandhi's call for non-cooperation.
Later, Kalki emerged as one of the foremost Tamil writers. He established Tamil weekly Kalki magazine in 1941. He wrote the historical novel Ponniyin Selvan based on the Chola dynasty and two other novels on Pallava dynasty. His writings include over 120 short stories, 10 novellas, 5 novels, 3 historical romances, editorial and political writings, and hundreds of film and music reviews. He died in Chennai on the 5th of December 1954 at the age of 55. We salute this great Indian patriot.
You're watching News on the Hour. We're heading for a short break. Stay with us.
With the world's largest COVID vaccination drive, India is leading the way. As the vaccine reaches every corner of the nation, do not forget the mantra, Dawai bhi, Kadai bhi. Let's continue our fight against COVID-19. Vaccination along with social distancing, sanitization and masks.
Mask up, India!
Put your mask on and cover your nose and be safe.
Mask up, India.
Welcome back after the break. Russian President Vladimir Putin will pay an official visit to New Delhi on Monday for the 21st India-Russia Annual Summit with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The leaders will review the state and prospects of bilateral relations and also discuss ways to further strengthen the strategic partnership between the two countries. The summit will be an opportunity to exchange views on regional, multilateral and international issues of mutual interest. Both the leaders will also hold one-on-one talks There will be intensive engagement during the day, culminating with the India-Russia annual summit. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and his Russian counterpart Sergei Shoigu will co-chair the Intergovernmental Commission on Military Technical Cooperation in the morning. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will have a bilateral meeting with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov. Also, these meetings will be followed by inaugural meeting of the newly instituted 22 Dialogue. And emphasizing that Russian President Vladimir Putin's upcoming visit to New Delhi would result in pragmatic economic outcomes, Russian envoy to India, Nikolai Kudashev, said that the visit will provide impetus to the bilateral relationship of Moscow and New Delhi.
It would be a very comprehensive paper, a very comprehensive document covering all dimensions of our ties, beginning with the United global issues, global affairs and United Nations, revived commitment to its central position in modern world. Then would come multiple regional issues, naturally Afghanistan included, as a source of our common concern, and then much space would be devoted to bilateral ties. And the new inputs into this unique track of our relationship. Bringing on board new technologies, new ideas, new people, and new regions. For the outcomes, aside of the political statement, one could expect also a sizable package, a sizable amount of agreements and memorandums.
The United States and a host of Arab countries have called on the Taliban to end the targeted killings of former members of Afghan security forces. In a joint statement, the 22 nations demanded that the Islamist regime respect its pledge not to harm former government or security personnel. The short joint statement was issued by the US and signed by the UK, European Union and a further 19 countries. It outlined their deep concerns over the report's findings and called on all cases of extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances to be fully investigated. Also, the statement said that those responsible must be held accountable and these steps must be clearly publicized as an immediate deterrent to further killings and disappearances. US President Joe Biden will hold a video call with Russian President Vladimir Putin on the coming Tuesday. According to sources, the two leaders plan to discuss US concerns about Russia's military buildup on the Ukraine border and other topics. The two will also discuss bilateral ties and the implementation of agreements reached at the Geneva summit in June. Biden will also discuss strategic stability, cyber and regional issues while reaffirming his support for sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. The exact timing of the call was not disclosed. More than 94,000 Russian troops are massed near Ukraine's borders. Ukraine Defense Minister said on Friday that Moscow may be planning a large-scale military offensive for end of January, citing intelligence reports. French President Emmanuel Macron announced on Saturday a Saudi-French initiative to solve a diplomatic row between several Gulf states and Lebanon. Macron said that he said this during his visit to Saudi Arabia, where he will hold talks with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman as part of a Gulf tour. Asserting that Paris and Riyadh are committed to supporting Lebanon, Macron said that they would fully engage on a range of issues. In October, Riyadh expelled Lebanon's envoy to Kingdom, recalled its ambassador to Beirut and also banned Lebanese imports after former Lebanese Information Minister Georges Kordahi made critical remarks about Saudi Arabia's role in the Yemen war. The UAE and Bahrain took similar steps against Lebanon following the Saudi move. Kordahi resigned on Friday ahead of Macron's visit in an effort to ease the rift, saying he was acting in his country's interest to help end the dispute. In Indonesia, at least one person was killed and 41 people suffered burn injuries after Mount Semeru volcano erupted yesterday. According to the authorities, 2 people were reported missing and 8 were trapped in debris, while thousands were forced to flee. Indonesia sits in the Pacific Ring of Fire, where meeting of continental plates causes high volcanic and seismic activity. The Southeast Asian archipelago nation has nearly 130 active volcanoes. Polish border guards on Saturday detained two Kurdish migrants who had travelled to Belarus from Turkey and crossed into Poland several days earlier. Border guards detained the two and took them to a nearby border guard post. Poland, Lithuania and Latvia have seen sharp increase in migrants crossing their borders with Belarus since this summer. The European Union accuses Belarus of flying in migrants, mainly from the Middle East, and pushing them to illegally cross the border with Poland in a hybrid attack on the bloc. Belarus denies fueling the crisis, but the European Union imposed sanctions in a new round of punitive measures coordinated with the United States on Thursday. Sudan's military will exit politics after elections scheduled for 2023. Stating this, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan said that the deposed former ruling party would have no role in the transitional government. Following a military takeover led by Burhan in late October that sidetracked Sudan's transition to civilian-led democracy, a deal was struck on November 21st, reinstating Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok to lead a technocratic cabinet until elections in July 2023. The coup drew international condemnation after the detention of dozens of key officials and crackdowns on protesters. At least 44 people have died during demonstrations so far. Sudan is in the midst of a deep economic crisis, with positive signs emerging only after the beginning of an influx of money from the IMF, World Bank and Western nations, much of which was suspended after the coup. In Gambia, results of polls which closed yesterday are expected today. Citizens voted for the presidential post in a tightly fought race seen as a test of democratic progress. It was the West African country's first democratic election since former President Yahya Jammeh was voted out of office in 2016. Jammeh, who was defeated by an opposition coalition that backed the current president Adama Barrow, fled to Equatorial Guinea in 2017 after refusing to accept defeat. Barrow is facing 5 rivals, including his former political mentor, Oussenou Darboe, who is seen as his main challenger. A quick update on the global situation with regard to COVID. The world is seeing an upward trend in the cases yet again. The number of cases of the disease have crossed 26 crore 57 lakh. More than 23 crore 93 lakh people have recovered from the virus, and it has claimed over 52 lakh 64,000 lives. The US continues to remain the worst affected by the virus, registering more than 4 crore 99 lakh cases and over 8 lakh fatalities. COVID-19 cases have been mushrooming all across Europe as well, with the UK being the hardest hit in the continent. The UK has more than 1 crore 4 lakh cases of COVID, followed by France, where the cases have risen above 78 lakh 75,000. Germany also registers a spike in the number of cases, with total tally standing about 61 lakh 43,000. Italy trails behind it, where the cases have crossed 50 lakh 94,000. Britain will require all inbound travellers to take a pre-departure COVID test, and arrivals from Nigeria will have to quarantine in hotels. UK Health Minister Sajid Javid said the pre-departure testing requirement will come in from Tuesday, while Nigeria will be added to Britain's travel red list tomorrow. This means that only UK citizens or the residents of the UK can enter the UK from Nigeria from tomorrow. Javid said that there are around 160 cases of Omicron across Britain and that new infections linked to the variant are expected. Talking about Christmas, he said that people should enjoy it as usual, following the guidelines already set up.
Over the recent days, we have learned of a significant number of growing cases linked to travel with Nigeria. There are 27 cases already in England, and that's growing, and Nigeria now is second only to South Africa in terms of linked cases to Omicron. So today the government has decided to add Nigeria to the travel red list, and that will be effective from 4 a.m. on Monday, which will mean that only UK citizens or residents of the UK can enter the UK from Nigeria from that point onwards, and they will have to quarantine in one of the relevant hotels. We have also decided to require pre-departure tests. That's for all inward travellers. That will be effective from 4 a.m. on Tuesday, and they will be required a maximum of 48 hours before the departure time.
Italy has tightened the screws on people unwilling to take the anti-COVID vaccine, sharply restricting access to NHS services and making vaccines mandatory for a wider group of public sector workers. Under the Italian measures, which will come into force from tomorrow, unvaccinated people will not be able to enter venues such as cinemas, restaurants and sports events. The government has extended mandatory vaccination, already in force for healthcare workers, to all school staff, police and the military as well, beginning from 15 December. In addition, third doses of the vaccine, so-called boosters, currently available to those over 40 years of age, will be made available to everyone over the age of 18. Italy has registered 134,077 deaths linked to COVID since its outbreak emerged in February last year. That is the second highest toll in Europe after Britain and the 9th highest in the world. The country has reported 5.08 million cases till date. Outgoing Chancellor Angela Merkel has urged Germans on her final podcast released on Saturday to get vaccinated against COVID to help turn the tide on a fourth wave of cases that she said had become dramatic in parts of the country. German officials agreed on Thursday to bar unvaccinated people from accessing all but the most essential businesses such as grocery stores, pharmacies and bakeries, and also decided to seek to make vaccination mandatory. Germany recorded 64,510 new infections on Saturday and another 378 deaths, bringing the total death toll to 1,02,946. Germans in Berlin and Frankfurt marched on Saturday against tightening of the COVID restrictions. In the German financial capital, police broke up a demonstration of several hundred people for failing to wear masks or maintain social distancing, using batons and pepper spray after they were attacked by a group of protesters. And in Berlin, where a new government is set to take office within days, small groups gathered to protest after a large demonstration was banned. In Austria, too, over 40,000 people marched through Vienna on Saturday to protest against the lockdown and plans to make vaccinations compulsory to curb the COVID pandemic. Faced with surging daily infections, the government last month made Austria the first country in Western Europe to reimpose a lockdown and said that it would make vaccinations mandatory from February. A parliamentary committee this week approved doubling the length of the lockdown to 20 days, which the government has said is the longest it will last. Austria, a country of 89 lakh people, has reported nearly 12 lakh COVID cases and more than 12,000 COVID-linked deaths since the pandemic began last year. In Spanish city of Barcelona too, thousands of demonstrators gathered on Saturday to protest against COVID passes that are now required to enter bars, restaurants, gyms and care homes. Protesters termed the vaccine not a cure but an experiment. With nationwide vaccination rate of nearly 80%, Spain has been largely spared the latest wave of the contagion sweeping Europe that has pushed countries like Germany and Austria to reintroduce tough restrictions on travel and socializing. Spain's 14-day COVID infection rate rose again on December 2nd to 234 per 1 lakh people, having doubled since November 19, but it remains substantially lower than in some European Union countries such as the Netherlands, Belgium or Germany. In Brazil, dozens of protesters shut down Sao Paulo's normally bustling Paulista Avenue on Saturday to demand the ousting of President Jair Bolsonaro's government. Protesters lambasted Bolsonaro's government as genocidal and fascist over its handling of the pandemic. Bolsonaro faces criticism for denying the gravity of the virus, opposing lockdowns and also failing to secure vaccine supplies. The vast majority of the protesters were women, with many denouncing gender-based violence in the country. In Brazil, the COVID pandemic has claimed more than 6,15,000 lives, the second highest total in the world after the United States. Meanwhile, the mayor of Rio de Janeiro cancelled New Year's Eve celebrations after Brazil confirmed the first known case of Omicron variant in Latin America's biggest country. The yearly celebrations on Copacabana Beach has in the past gathered more than 1 million locals and tourists. Other Brazilian cities, including Sao Paulo and Salvador, have also cancelled New Year's Eve celebrations due to fears of the Omicron variant. So far, the Ministry of Health has confirmed 5 Omicron cases in Brazil. In Netherlands, several thousand people gathered in the central Dutch town of Utrecht on Saturday to protest against new COVID restrictions that came into force last weekend. Protesters walked through the streets of the town carrying banners. They denounced what they see as increasing pressure from the Dutch government to get vaccinated if they want to participate in regular society. It is the first major demonstration in the Netherlands against the measures, which include a nighttime closure of bars, restaurants and most stores to stem a record-breaking wave of COVID cases that is threatening to overwhelm the country's healthcare system. We're heading for a short break. Stay with us. We'll be back in a short while.
As the day unfolds and news and events take shape, we get you complete coverage of every news breaking in, tracking new developments as they happen. Midday Prime English, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. In a tragic incident, over a dozen people died in a firing incident in Thiru village area in Nagaland's Mon district on Saturday evening. Chief Minister Neiphiu Rio in a tweet said, the unfortunate incident leading to killing of civilians at Otheng Mon is highly condemnable. Condolences to the bereaved families and also speedy recovery of those injured. High-level SIT will investigate and justice delivered as per the law of land. Appeal for peace from all sections. Union Home Minister Amit Shah expressed anguish over the unfortunate incident in Nagaland's Otheng Mon and expressed condolences to the families of those who have lost their lives. The minister said that a high-level SIT constituted by the state government will thoroughly probe this incident to ensure justice to the bereaved families. Meanwhile, PRO Defence Kohima Lieutenant Governor Sumit K. Sharma in a statement regretted the incident and its aftermath. The statement said, and I quote, based on credible intelligence of the likely movement of insurgents, a specific operation was planned to be conducted in the area of Tiru, Mon District, Nagaland. The cause of the unfortunate loss of lives is being investigated at the highest level and appropriate action will be taken as per the course of law. Security forces have suffered severe injuries in the incident, including one soldier who succumbed to the injuries. And from here we take you to Rajasthan, where Union Home Minister Amit Shah is addressing the occasion of celebration of the 57th Raising Day of the Border Security Force in Jaisalmer.
हर क्षेत्र के अंदर चाहे वो ट्रेनिंग हो, तकनीकीकरण करना हो, जवानों की चुस्तता को संभाल कर रखना हो और अलग अलग प्रकार से जो सीमा को सुरक्षित करने के नए तौर तरीके अपनाने हैं, हर दृष्टि से अपने लक्ष्य उन्होंने तय करने चाहिए, ऐसा मैं मानता हूं और मुझे विश्वास है कि पंकज सिंह के नेतृत्व में ये काम सीमा सुरक्षा बल बहुत अच्छे तरीके से करेगा। मैं जब आज यहां पर आया हूं तो देश भर के पुलिस बल, हमारे सीमा सुरक्षा बल और सीमा सुरक्षा की अलग अलग जगह पर लगे हुए सारे सीएपीएफ के जवानों ने 35,000 से ज्यादा जवानों ने अलग अलग जगह पर बलिदान दिए हैं और मुझे कहते हुए गौरव है कि बीएसएफ इसमें सिरमौर है, सबसे आगे है, क्योंकि सबसे कठिन सीमाओं की सुरक्षा का दायित्व बीएसएफ को दिया है। आज मैं उस सभी दिवंगत शहीद जवानों को विनम्र भाव के साथ पूरे देश की ओर से, हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी की ओर से और गृह मंत्रालय की ओर से विनम्र श्रद्धांजलि देकर अपनी बात की शुरुआत करना चाहता हूं। मित्रों, सीमा सुरक्षा बल का जो इतिहास है बहुत गौरवपूर्ण इतिहास। 1965 के युद्ध के बाद इसकी स्थापना का निर्णय किया और उसकी स्थापना के कुछ ही समय के अंदर धीरे धीरे सीमा सुरक्षा बल ने अपने आप को व्यवस्थित करा और आज दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा सीमाओं की रक्षा करने वाला बल हमारा सीमा सुरक्षा बल है। इसको हमें बहुत गर्व है। चाहे पहाड़ हो, चाहे रेगिस्तान हो, चाहे गुजरात और राजस्थान के दलदली रेगिस्तान हो, चाहे नदियों में और जंगलों में उबड़ खाबड़ बॉर्डर हो, पश्चिम बंगाल की बॉर्डर पर, मेघालय की बॉर्डर पर, चाहे बर्फीले तूफान के बीच में कश्मीर में, सीमा सुरक्षा बल ने ना -43 डिग्री टेम्परेचर की परवाह करी है, ना 50 डिग्री टेम्परेचर की परवाह करी है। हर भौगोलिक परिवेश के अंदर अहर्निश पराक्रम और उत्कृष्ट सेवा का प्रदर्शन करते हुए सीमा सुरक्षा बल ने अपने देश को सुरक्षित रखा है। और आज लोंगोवाल के युद्ध को कौन भूल सकता है। सेना और सीमा सुरक्षा बल ने साथ में मिलकर 1971 में लोंगोवाल में एक अदम्य उत्साह और प्रचंड पराक्रम का परिचय देते हुए बहुत कम संख्या में हमारे जवानों ने एक पूरी टैंक की बटालियन को खदेड़ दिया था, उसका संपूर्ण समूल नाश करने का काम किया था। और वो युद्ध देश भर में लड़े गए जमीनी युद्धों के अंदर उदाहरण रूप दिखाया जाता है। कई ट्रेनिंग सेंटरों में उसको सिखाया जाता है कि आधुनिक से आधुनिक हथियार हो, संख्या ज्यादा हो और सामना करने के लिए हथियारों के नाम पर लगभग कुछ न हो, संख्या 1/10 हो, फिर भी अगर जवान वीरता के साथ देशभक्ति से प्रेरित होकर सामना करता है तो विजय श्री उसी का वर्ण करती है जो पराक्रमी है, जो साहसी है, जो अपने देश को सुरक्षित करना चाहता है। और ये उदाहरण आज पूरे दुनिया भर के ट्रेनिंग सेंटरों के अंदर सिखाया जाता है। कुछ समय पहले मैं ब्रिगेडियर कुलदीप सिंह चांदपुरी जी को मिला था। फरीदाबाद में देश का सबसे ऊंचा झंडा लहराने के लिए मैं गया था, तब चांदपुरी जी को मिलने का मुझे मौका मिला था। मुझे उसका गर्व है। मित्रों, आपको मिले एक महावीर चक्र, 13 वीर चक्र, 4 कीर्ति चक्र, 13 शौर्य चक्र और अगिनत पुलिस मेडल आपके सीमा रक्षण में एक अद्वितीय बल होने का सबसे बड़ी साक्षी भरता है कि ये बल को इतने सारे वीरता के चक्र मिले हैं, वो मेरे लिए भी गौरव है। मित्रों, मानव जाति के इतिहास में वीरता को सम्मानित करने के लिए कोई पदक बना ही नहीं है। आपकी वीरता स्वयं में पूरे देश के लिए एक पदक है। इससे ज्यादा परिचय में आपकी वीरता का नहीं दे सकता। और मुझे पूरा भरोसा है कि राष्ट्रपति महोदय ने, प्रधानमंत्री महोदय ने जिस पराक्रमी बीएसएफ के जवानों को पदक लेकर पुरस्कृत किया है, जिनका सम्मान और गौरव किया है, वो केवल उन जवानों के लिए नहीं, समस्त बीएसएफ की 2,65,000 की संख्या वाले बल के लिए प्रेरणा का स्रोत हमेशा रहेगा। अटल जी के समय में एक निर्णय हुआ कि एक देश एक बल। देश से जुड़ी हुई सीमाओं के लिए एक बड़ा महत्वपूर्ण फैसला कर पूरी हौच पौच को समाप्त करने का काम किया गया। एक देश की सीमा पर एक ही बल होगा और उस वक्त बीएसएफ के लिए उचित ही है, वैसे बीएसएफ के लिए सबसे कठिन सीमाओं का चयन किया गया। 4,165 किलोमीटर की बांग्लादेश की सीमा और पाकिस्तान की 3,323 किलोमीटर की सीमा।
So that was Home Minister Amit Shah addressing the 57th Racing Day of the Border Security Force in Jaisalmer. He also talked of the contribution of the BSF till now, and the address is still continuing in the bulletins that follow. We'll get you the details of the celebrations and also the highlights of the Home Minister's address. Meanwhile, let's also tell you that news and updates still continue on DD India. And with that, we quickly wind up this edition of News on the Hour. But before we go, we will take you to Palestine, where a giant Christmas tree was lit up outside Bethlehem's Church of the Nativity, with the hope that the new COVID variant doesn't ruin another holiday season in the traditional birthplace of Jesus. The giant tree, topped with a bright red star, was lit up with hundreds of colored lights as red, white and green fireworks illuminated the night sky. Take a look at these beautiful visuals. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye.